Okay guys, today we are going to be working on the next lesson in our fractions unit, which is dividing fractions. So just to review the previous day's lesson, I'm gonna sneeze, give me a second. We talked about multiplying fractions, and we talked about the fact that in multiplying fractions, it's pretty simplistic in the sense that if I have 2/3 and I'm multiplying it by 1/8, all I'm doing is I'm multiplying across the top and across the bottom. So I'm going 2 times 1 is 2, and that's going to give me my new numerator. And then 3 times 8 is 24. And then I can reduce as necessary. So divide by 2 and divide by 2, which means my new one is 1/12. Okay, so that's the reminder of multiplication. For division, it's really important that you keep multiplication in mind because dividing fractions is, in some sense, very similar or uses multiplication. So, for example, one of the things I need you to remember is that dividing fractions is the same as multiplying and I'm going to write this word, reciprocal. And the reciprocal is very simply the opposite. And let's talk about what that means. So if I have a fraction that's 2/3, the reciprocal of this fraction is 3/2. Okay, so when we say that dividing fractions is kind of the same as multiplying the reciprocal, we're going to be using the opposites of some fractions. Okay, so let's go into it right now. Let's start with just some knowledge-based questions that we can kind of get our head wrapped around. So if I said that, for example, I wanted to know what 2/3 divided by 4 is. Okay. First thing I need to do is I need to rewrite my fraction out. Just because 4 is a whole number, I want to turn it into a improper fraction. So I'm going to write 2/3 divided by 4/1. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to do the next stage, which is what we call the flip stage. So in dividing, we're going to be learning about something called the flip and kiss. This part, cool. This part, not until you're 18, but for the math's sake, we're going to do today. So we're going to do the flip part. And in the flip part, what we're asking you to do is we're going to flip the second fraction, the fraction that after the quotient, okay? So, after the division sign. So I'm going to rewrite it, and I'm going to have 2/3 divided by, and now I'm going to flip it. So now it's actually going to be 1/4. Okay? So I've done my flip. So I've taken this fraction and I flipped it to this fraction. And now at this stage, I'm going to do the kiss. Okay? And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rewrite this. I have 1/4. And now my kiss is going to be multiplication, right? Because they're going to kiss each other. They're going to kiss across and kiss across. So now I know I had division, but because we flipped the reciprocal, we're going to flip the actual sign as well. And now it's just simple multiplication, right? 2 times 1 is 1, 3 times 4 is 12, or 1/6. Okay? So that's kind of the idea of the flip and kiss, which is dividing fractions. Another way of simplifying that for you is when we say flip, is to flip everything after the first fraction. So let's take a look at what that might look like on this one. So let's say that I'm going to continue to do the flip and kiss. And again, if you need to rewind, you can rewind. Let's say I have 3/5 divided by 2/3. I want to know what 3/5 of 2/3 is. So first stage is I'm going to do my flip. So I'm going to rewrite it, but I'm going to flip. But this time I'm going to flip everything after the first fraction, which means I'm going to flip the sign, right? Division will now become multiplication. I'm going to flip the fraction. So my next line will look like this: 3/5, nothing changes there, times, right? I'm flipping this, and now it's going to be 3/2. Okay? So I've taken one less step in this one, and just for your time's sake and whatever you feel comfortable. Now I'm going to kiss. 3 times 3 is 9. 5 times 2 is 10. We have 9/10. I cannot reduce it any further. Okay? So that's kind of the concept of dividing that we're going to be looking at when we're dividing fractions. Let's do a couple more as a class, and I'm going to get you guys to do one by yourself. Okay? So I'm going to just erase this board. Let's say we had one where there was one proper fraction and one improper fraction. So we're going to do 5/8 divided by 4/3. So first step is to flip. So I'm going to flip everything after this. So my next line will look like 5/8 times 3/4. You could, if you are still somebody who wants to work in smaller steps, your next line could look like this: 5/8 divided by 3/4, and then you could do the multiplication one. So what I'll do is I'll have two different ones going, just so you can kind of, for this side is for those people who like to take a couple more smaller steps. This side is for somebody who wants to kind of get it done a little bit quicker. So at this point, we're going to be doing this part to this side. Right now we're going to just change the sign. So now we're at the same spot, right? And so now we're going to solve. 5 times 3 is 15. 8 times 4 is 32. Can I reduce it by anything? I can't, so that's going to be my last step. Okay, so we've got an improper fraction and a proper fraction. Let's try one more, and let's do one where there's a mixed number. So we'll do 2 1/2 divided by 2/3. So 2.5, let's say I'm doing 2.5 cups of something for recipe, and I want to divide it into 2/3 packages. That's kind of what we're asking for here. So in this stage, what are we going to do first? We're going to have to turn it into an improper fraction. So 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5/2 divided by 2/3. So we take that extra step just to turn it into an improper fraction. Let's flip 5/2 times 3/2. Let's kiss. 5 times 3 is 15. 2 times 2 is 4. Can't leave it as an improper fraction, so I'm going to turn it into a mixed number. How many times does 4 go into 15? Well, it goes 3 times. That gives me 12. 3 times 4 is 12. 15 take away 12 will give me 3 as a remainder over 4. Okay, so there is one other way, and I'm going to show it to you just for your own knowledge of finding out the ways of dividing fractions. Again, you can choose which one you feel most comfortable with. This is the one that I've always felt most comfortable with, but I think it's only necessary that I teach you guys the other way too. And the other way is about finding common denominators and then eliminating the denominators. So let's talk our way through this. So let's say I've got 1 7/8, and I'm going to divide that by 1 1/4. Okay, first step is obviously to change them into improper fractions. 8 times 1 is 8. 8 plus 7 is 15, and I keep my denominator at 8. Divided by 4 times 1 is 4, plus 1 is 5. 5/4. Okay, So in this case, there's no flipping kissing. You're going to actually look at finding a common denominator. So we have 4 and 8. We need to find something that's common. Well, we know 8 goes into 8 and 4 goes into 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn both of these denominators into 8. Okay? Now we have to figure out, okay, I did nothing to get from here to here, so 15 is going to stay on the top. How to get from 4 to 8? I multiply by 2, so I'm going to do the exact same thing by the 5, and that's going to become that, okay? So now I've reached this point where I've made common denominators, and I've made sure my numerators are have been changed based on the common denominator. At this point, I can actually get rid of this line, okay? And what now is going to happen is it's going to become the first numerator is going to become my numerator, my new fraction. And the second numerator is going to become my denominator in my second fraction. Okay? At this point, we're going to divide. What goes into both of these evenly? Well, I know that both can be divisible by 5. And so 15 divided by 5 is 3. 10 divided by 5 is 2. I can't leave this as an improper fraction, so I'm going to turn it into 1.5. So this stage is you find the common denominator and then you eliminate the denominator. The first fraction becomes your new numerator. The second fraction becomes your new denominator, and then you find it one that's divisible. Just so you can see that it does actually work out the same way. If I go back to this stage, and I go 15 over 8 times 4 over 5, I've got 60 over 40, which means that I've got 40 goes into 60 once, with 20 over 40 left. 20 goes into both of these numbers, so 20 goes into 20 once, 20 goes into 40 twice. So the exact same math is coming through, right? But I'm just doing it in a different way. So if it makes more sense for you to find common denominators, that's totally fine. This is more of a skill that you're going to learn in addition and subtraction. But if you like to use the flip and kiss, you can totally do. One is not better than the other. It's what your comfort level is for your understanding. So let's just do one on your own. I'm just going to erase this quickly. And I'd like you to try this one for me. Let's try 3/5 divided by 5/6. Okay, so take a pause, and I'd like you to go and try to complete this on your own. Okay, so a more simple one we're doing with 2 proper fractions. So we're going to rewrite our next line. 3/5, we're going to flip everything, times 6 over 5. Okay, work it out now. 18 over 25, can it be reduced? It can't, because nothing goes into both, unfortunately. So we're done. Okay, so that's just kind of a basic introduction to the knowledge concept of this. We're going to come back and do some application word problems in a couple minutes. Okay, thanks.